Fernando Pereira from XTEND3D, and his talk is entitled "The Metaverse Reimagined." So I guess that's playing into some of the discussions what's happened with the metaverse over the last year, overcoming obstacles and seizing opportunities.
So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for being my crowd for today. I was just chatting with my friend Tahi that if it was last year, this would probably be super packed with people standing and pushing each other, trying to understand what the hell is the metaverse, right? But today, it's not really the case, so thank you so much for being my audience. I do find it interesting because maybe I haven't seen the other talks yet, but maybe if it was the talk about AI, which is the next big thing, supposedly, and not downplaying it, I do use AI. I cannot live without AI these days. Maybe my whole presentation was made by AI, who knows? But I feel like maybe if it was an AI talk, it would be more people. But then again, when I looked at LinkedIn and I see all these people that are constantly changing their taglines. Like this year they are AI experts. Last year they had Metaverse expert. The year before they had blockchain expert. Well, that's kind of, they're experts of blank, right? Literally. So just chasing the trends. And anyway, that's not my thing. My thing is gaming. I've been a gamer since forever, basically. So today we'll talk a little bit about the metaverse. Which I at least still believe, and you, I guess, as well, for being here today, that also kind of still believe in this vision that eventually there is a future for these kind of platforms. So my name is Fernando. I'm running a new startup called Extended. We started about a year and a half ago. I'll be talking a little bit more about it by the end of the presentation. I also run a non-profit organization, esports one. We just made 21 years old last month. And it's basically an organization more related with social inclusion projects where we have high-performance centers for kids where they can come. Maybe they can get some psychology support because many of the kids who are addicted to gaming is probably because they are having issues at home and things like that. And then I'm also the founder of the largest women empowerment gaming festival that we run globally. It's called the Girl Gamer Esports Festival, and that's actually more the reason why they call me to speak, is more on the women empowerment side. But here today I'm here for a different reason. But yeah, basically it's a gaming festival dedicated for women where we try and create more opportunities, not just across the competitive side, but also across all positions that support the esports industry itself, like broadcaster, production, shoutcaster, all of the things that support the industry. So in this presentation, we'll be talking about the metaverse, but it's also important to talk a little bit about gaming because gaming was kind of a precursor, not even a precursor, it was the origins, let's put it this way. Kind of everything started with gaming, right? And gaming has the potential of being this catalyst that will lead whatever the metaverse eventually will become to grow into mass adoption, because gaming are immersive experiences, they are interactive, they have this social component that people can find friends online, they can hang out with. All these are key elements to what the metaverse eventually will be shaping to become. So not just that, but gaming is also always at the forefront of pushing computer graphics, which is very important, right? These companies like NVIDIA and AMD and so on, they are building all these super advanced chips for gaming so that gamers can have a more immersive experience, more interactive, more realistic, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So I think that these are all things that we kind of have an understanding that the metaverse will be something like that, a 3D world, something that comes from the gaming space itself. So talking a little bit about games. And by the way, who here played World of Warcraft? Anyone? Oh, cool. Me too, for many years. So I think that World of Warcraft is such a good example because Blizzard launched this in 2005, sorry. And it's a really good experiment, right? I love that IBM back in the day had this paper where they called it virtual world's real leaders. Why? Well, if you are performing such complex tasks as leading a 40-man group to do a raid with crazy things, you know, showering fire here, getting out of some toxic puddle, whatever it is, 40 people working together to do such complex tasks as defeating a World of Warcraft boss, well, maybe you got some leadership skills being developed, right? So it's more likely that those leadership skills will eventually be able to be transferable to your real life. So World of Warcraft gave us a first impression as a massive online role-playing game. Gave us this impression of what it is to have character creation, being able to customize your character. It was a persistent world. That's why it was so addictive. You know, it's 24/7. So if you're not there, you're kind of missing out on making money on the auction house and so on. So it feels like these are also all elements that a potential metaverse would have in the future. Another good example, Fortnite, right? The global success that they had propelled it into becoming a cultural phenomenon. Not just because they are cross-platform. Actually, I think it's probably the best and most successful case of cross-platform that first appeared, because you know, developers love closing their games exclusively to PlayStation, exclusively to PC, and so on and on. And when Fortnite appeared, they were already cross-platform, and then they grew even to become cross-platform to mobile. So imagine a game that you can play on your mobile, on your console, on your computer. Suddenly, you can play with all your friends across different devices. So that helped it propel to success. And at the same time, they popularized virtual music concerts. Even though inside Fortnite, you can kind of only communicate using dances and basic emotes, but people are still using it as a platform for virtual concerts that are not necessarily just concerts of, you know, someone standing there and music is playing and they have some animation. No, they're actually building real experiences, you know, immersive experiences that are in the world of fantasy, where they have giants walking around or they're floating through some tunnel. Things like that, right? And not only that, they did collaborations with major franchises like Star Wars, Avengers, John Wick, and Ghostbusters, all these things, implementing these franchises and IPs into the game itself, making really, really cool experiences. So Fortnite, really good example of what the metaverse, what some features of the metaverse people would want to see. So according to ARK Invest research, the revenue from virtual worlds could be approaching 400 billion by 2025. This is basically just showing that, yes, it is, there's an appetite for these things, and it's just constantly growing from where we are, or where we were even 20 to 30 years ago. So let's talk a little bit about the metaverse. As I was saying, I'm not surprised that the room is not super packed, because now the kind of hype has been gone, which in my view, it's a really, really good thing, because people who were just here for the fast money, the next thing, already left and moved on to the next thing, and the real builders kept building, right? Because that's what it is. So I do feel that there's a lack of perceived results that also contributed to the metaverse not being so successful right now. Because we've seen all these big companies talking about, you know, the metaverse, everything that they're pushing is metaverse, VR, like Facebook and so on, and then you look at the results, and the results are not really there. And Facebook itself has been super criticized with the things that they outputted. The Spain, the Paris experience, and all of that was terrible. So I think that lack of perceived value, because there's no deliver on promise, has failed. But at the same time, the metaverse is not something that you can just create, right, like that, because it needs behavior shift in users. Users need to perceive value. There has to be a platform that gives them the tool, the reason to be there. So it's not that easy, and it's a process that it's going to take time. I think even Facebook itself, they said that it's going to take about 10 years or something to build what we would call the metaverse. So I'm sure that you're here, you all kind of have an idea of what the metaverse is. So just running very quickly through some of the characteristics, a 3D persistent world, just like World of Warcraft. Each user has an avatar. They can go inside, run, communicate with their friends, social environment, right? It could be an immersive experience, not necessarily, but let's see, right? VR, augmented reality, and mixed reality. There's a potential in that for sure, and especially now Apple is doubling down on this Apple Vision Pro to see if mixed reality will pick up even more. Let's see how that goes. And yes, there's a digital economy associated with it, just like World of Warcraft had an auction house, but money was still kept within Blizzard, and it was not transferable between people, unless you go to some shady black market websites. It powers a creative economy, which is very important because user-generated content is what also powers the community that can propel a game to success. Potentially, it would have a decentralized ownership. Many people are actually pushing this forward very strongly because there are some key elements that we will see about the Web3 that could help to solve some of the issues that metaverses have. It's important to have limitless scalability, right? If we want to push a world out there that anyone can use, anyone can access 24/7, it needs to grow and needs to be able to, a lot of people must be able to be in the same space together, and cross-platform, very important, just like Fortnite did. So the metaverse is not really a new thing, right? At least for me, I started my first metaverse company back in 2008. I was building on OpenSim technology, which is kind of this open source version of what Second Life was doing. And I think that since then, there has been so many projects that some of them were super popular and they shut down. But I think that even though they didn't become the metaverse so per se, they kind of paved the way, right? Each one of them brought certain characteristics that contributed to this vision of what the metaverse will eventually be. PlayStation Home, for example, I think it was a super cool idea where people who were waiting for their matches to load, they would be able to have a social lobby to hang out with their friends. So more recently, there have been even more projects like Horizon Worlds, Roblox, VR Chat, super popular on VR, of course, and the Sandbox and Decentraland. All these projects are kind of unifying and contributing to the vision of what the metaverse will eventually become. So is the metaverse dead? I mean, judging by this room, I would say maybe. But if we look at the numbers, actually, these kind of platforms that assimilate themselves with characteristics to the metaverse, like Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, really good examples, they are all thriving. And these are statistics that I pulled yesterday for this presentation. And for the last 30 days, Fortnite had 242 million active users, Minecraft 164 million, Roblox 197 million. I mean, that doesn't really sound like dead to me, right? It seems like there's still an appetite for these kind of things. So to better understand the reasons for people to use the metaverse, we kind of need to dive into that. So I think that most people, what they are looking for is a social space. They can hang out with their friends across barriers. I could be, in Dubai. My friend could be in Portugal. My other friend could be in China, and all of us could be together in the same space, having a conversation, a social conversation. Or maybe I could be making new friends in this virtual world. So understanding the motivations for users, the motivations that users would have for using such a platform is very important to try and build something that could become successful. And these are all characteristics that online games have had since 50K dial modems. So it's nothing new. This is my most boring slide, but it's about the challenges that the metaverse kind of need to overcome, to be successful. The first, user adoption, because we look at platforms like Sandbox and Decentraland. I think that they are maybe Web3 first and game second, and that's kind of a problem, right? Because as I was saying, gaming is the origin of everything. It's the catalyst. So we cannot ask people to change their behaviors immediately, to learn everything that it's about creating a virtual wallet, a DeFi wallet and all these things. This is a gradual process, and those are features and tools. They're not the main thing. The white paper is not the main thing. The main thing is the game, right? So once we have the game, we can implement other features to it. But yeah, user adoption is a challenge. Having compelling use cases as well. There has to be interactive content. There has to be tools that people can use to actually do things inside such platforms. It has to be super user-friendly. I mean, any kid can just load it up and start it. That's a good example of how to build user-friendly experiences. There has to be a sustainable economic models. Hardware kind of need to be improved as well so that the experience is better. And all these things like privacy, security, and interoperability between platforms. These are all very important features, right? And we are still to overcome all of them. So talking a little bit about Web3, because this is not a Web3 talk, but Web3 is kind of like power back to the people, because it's about decentralization of things. And it can help to solve some of the issues like security and privacy. For example, these are just four possibilities that the Web3 can contribute to the metaverse. Let's say that DeFi wallets, for example, they allow people to have full ownership and full control over their virtual currencies and assets without any intermediary, right? NFTs. I was saying the World of Warcraft had an auction house, and you could buy and sell items there, but you could never get it out. You could never really transfer. This is all virtual, and it's owned by Blizzard, let's put it this way. So NFTs allowed the transactional value between users directly and without any intermediary. The online identity and digital footprint, well, if everything is on the blockchain, users can own their digital footprint, right? So they can be in control of their data. And of course, smart contracts would allow the governance of the metaverse to be decentralized as well. So these are all things that can contribute, but they have to be implemented as features and not as the main focus, which was kind of what was happening last year, where so many companies raised crazy amounts of money based on the Web3 strategy itself, but then they didn't really have a good promise on the gaming side. So this one, it's something that I think is very important, because why did the hype fade, and why is this room not super crazy packed? Well, because Metaverse is not something that you can just do like that, right? This is a process, and right now we're still in the emerging state. This is Gartner research, and in the emerging Metaverse state, I think that most people are just trying to do a killer app. Last year, we've seen people launch their products, like everything was Metaverse. I remember there were memes about this online, where you're building a social media, Metaverse. You're building a game, Metaverse. You're building a, whatever it is, Metaverse. That's kind of ridiculous, but it also means that we're not a mature industry yet. People are still trying to find their way. They're still trying to build it, and it's something that takes time. On maybe from 2024 next year to 2027, we're going to enter the advanced metaverse stage, which is where people will start combining different technologies like 3D mapping, I don't know, aerial shots, 5G, machine learning things, and they will implement this into the vision of what the metaverse could become. So we'll see more interesting things there, and obviously only in the future, like 2030 onwards, we're going to start seeing the maturing of the metaverse industry, because the technologies that power the metaverse are also going to become mature themselves. So this is an ongoing process. There's no real definition of what the metaverse is right now. It's kind of like let's try and see how can we shape it to become something that people really actually want to use. So talking about opportunities, I do think that there are a lot of opportunities out there. I would say that it's kind of like a gold rush but to try and build something that users could jump onto. Maybe a gold rush that you would not be using like a pickaxe and traditional tools. You'll be using super crazy expensive NVIDIA graphic cards to do that. But I do see a lot of opportunities in virtual fashion. I just met recently with Queen Mode's team. They're doing amazing on that. Education and training. I met a lady from Dubai and another one from Azerbaijan who are building educational metaverse content, basically teaching kids to learn like the solar system and other types of education things inside a game/metaverse, right? Which is much more compelling and immersive than reading a textbook like we've done for decades. Behavioral AI. I don't know if many of you saw this demo that NVIDIA launched about NPCs that are powered with AI, where you can just walk up to them and talk, like ask questions and so on, and they are trained within a narrative of the game story to reply to you accordingly. So that's super cool. All of these are super cool areas that have a lot of opportunities for developers that would want and try to pick some of them up. So the metaverse is, I think, definitely not dead yet because it's still in an emerging state and still maturing. But as we go on, digital is taking a big share of our lives. It is predicted by 2030, the average user will be spending more time online and on screens than offline. That's a bit scary, right? But it's the trend that we have, and the only thing that we can do is to build it in a sustainable and friendly way as we can to make it as healthy as possible. But it's important also to note that gamers kind of already spend more than half of their time online rather than offline. So talking a little bit about what I'm building on the opportunities that I saw, I built this new company during the pandemic. Actually, I was super bored at home, so I decided to just start and learning how to build games, because I always loved to play them, so why not build them? And what we're building is kind of like, I would call it the metaverse, even though now it's a bit of a cringe word, but it's the metaverse of real-life events and locations. So we're basically creating digital twin versions of real-life locations and then popularizing it with content, interactive content for virtual tourism experiences, for brands, showcases, and to host live virtual events. So metaverse tourism is something that I really believe in, and kind of gave me the sense that I had to start my first company based on this. Back in 2008, I was still studying and I wanted to travel, but I couldn't because I was stuck to university things. I didn't have enough money to do it and so on. So I thought, well, I love playing games, but why there isn't a game that allows me to travel into a world that I know and that I could visit someplace inside a game? So that's where my digital twins idea came from, and I tried to build upon it. Unfortunately, I think it was too much ahead of the curve at that time, so we ended up not being commercially viable. But now I think that technology has matured a lot. So it's already possible to do really, really amazing experiences. So I cannot wait to see how technology matures and what we will see in the years to come. Events. So why events? And I'm very focused on esports. As I was saying, my background is mostly on esports. Events can happen parallel to the real life events, right? We could have an esports event happening in a venue, but then the experience of watching esports online right now, it's kind of like watching television, which is super boring. The kids don't watch television. They just watch on-demand content, YouTube, and so on. And the experience of watching esports is having a screen like TV, and then you have a chat box where it's normally flooded with emotions and spam. So that's a problem because it's not really a social experience. So I think that with the metaverse, we could create a spatial arena, like where people could enter, they could go with their friends, they could communicate with their friends, you could hear someone cheering the team that they support, and so on. So this would create a really good experience from an esports viewership perspective. And at the same time, why the focus on esports? Because the gaming, the metaverse itself, it's going to have a first wave of adopters, right? And the metaverse is a 3D world, persistent, as we've talked about. So for sure that the first wave of adopters are going to be gamers, because they are the ones that know how to navigate in this 3D space and do all these crazy things that gamers do on their games. Other than that, we're looking into doing and building showrooms for brands where we could replicate like full virtual inventories. We could train AI representatives to chat with people, and if you have a question, where can I find this item, where is it on stock, what shops are there in this country, and so on, you could probably just do it with your voice, and then AI would reply to you. So these are just some of the examples. Looking at a little bit more, I'm going to show this are a little bit of sneak peeks that I think I've never showed it. No, I never showed it publicly. This is a little bit of what we're building, more recognizably, but because we're here in Dubai, so this is the entrance to Burj Khalifa. This is all real time, by the way. It's screenshot. They are screenshots, but they are rendered in Unreal Engine 5 in real time. This is downtown Lisbon. So basically, we're trying to use a combination of different technologies like NERV, LiDAR scanning, 3D mapping, photogrammetry, and all these things to build these super realistic worlds that are built as a multiplayer experience. So this is we're just focused on world building right now. Later on, we will focus on the Web3 side because I do see a lot of interest and potential to implement those features. But again, this is gaming first and Metaverse, and Web3 after as a feature and not as the main thing. Some final thoughts. Well, the Metaverse is still a work in progress, right? There's no specific definition. It's something that is still evolving with the technology that is going to power it. Gaming is pioneering the Metaverse. The massive growth of online gaming will play this essential role to bringing consumers and shifting them from playing traditional games into using these platforms. Those are the first wave of pioneer adopters. The future is super exciting. The Metaverse will touch all types of industry, not just gaming itself, but also education, e-commerce or virtual commerce, and the entertainment industry. And now that the hype is gone, it's definitely the best time to build things and to explore. So I hope that everyone has a bit of a call to action. If you want to build something in this space, there's full of opportunities. So that's my call. Now is the best time to do it. Thank you. That's all. Do we have time for questions or not really?
A bit late. Is there any questions? Is there one quick one? Okay, let's do one
go.
quick one.
Thank you very much. Rami Kirdani, Head of Innovation, Mondia Group. I had a quick question regarding what you just showed with the digital twins. You mentioned, I think the renders look beautiful, so I was wondering, you mentioned you're using Unreal as an engine.
Yes.
It does give the most beautiful results, but from what I've seen, it's one of the most expensive cloud rendering solutions. So how do you see that scaling out when you're trying to have multiple users access this in an affordable manner so that they're getting that kind of render quality without having to pay a lot of money for it?
Well, I think that if you're talking about cloud server-side rendering or you're talking just about deployment? Server-side. Well, we are not immediately looking at server-side, but I do think that server-side is going to take a big role in the future. As costs go down, like you said, it's super expensive to have instances of server-side rendering happening and serving that to each user. Because imagine you're going to have 1,000 users, which is a small number, right? And you have to have 1,000 instances serving those renderings to them. It's super expensive right now. I think that technology is still not evolved. If you look at Google, they shut down their server-side rendering projects, right, Stadia. And this is something that is constantly evolving. I do see that the focus right now is still on the consumer side, doing all the rendering. So most likely people will have their super expensive graphic cards doing the rendering. But Unreal has a big advantage, which is nanites, right? It breaks down everything instead of having level of detail, which is the furthest away the item is from you, the less details it has. Unreal just breaks everything down in little triangles and shows you what you have on your screen. So for the time being, I think that the focus is going to be on the consumer side to render these games.
Lovely. Excellent. Thank you very much.